Hey there, Diane Conklin with CompleteMarketingSystems.com. Just wanted to touch base today. Had an interesting thing happen. I guess it was last week where I was on a call and a coaching call, a group coaching call, and one of my clients said, "Oh my gosh, Diane," she asked a question, and I answered it. It was about a sales situation, and she said, "You make it sound you're so natural, right? You make it sound so easy." And I said to her the same thing that I always say to people, right? Which is, yeah, after 30 years, it better sound easy, right? It better sound natural. And so the thought that came to me was, and the thing that I said to the person who asked this question to me was, the key to getting better, the key to being good at something, the key to making things sound natural, to be a better copywriter, whatever it is, right? The key is really practice. And that sounds simple, and it's not, right? If you know anything about me, I was an athlete my whole life. And so there was a lot of practicing that happened in my life because of being an athlete, in high school and being on traveling softball teams in the summer, in college playing Division I, softball, bodybuilding after that. There's always been something. But what I know is this, is that if you want to be good at anything, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell who talks about, to become an expert, you need 10,000 hours of time doing the thing to become an expert. Now, I don't know that there's some magical number in that. I don't know how many hours I've got in, copywriting. I don't know how many hours I have in speaking. I don't know how many hours I've put in, practicing softball, throwing, batting, fielding, whatever. Maybe it was 10,000 hours. Maybe it was twice that. I don't really know. But the point of the matter is this. If you want to be good at something, if you want to be a natural, quote, and I put that definitely in air quotes, right? If you want things to seemingly come easier to you, the key is you have to practice. There's just, to my knowledge, there's no way around that piece, right? How do you get better? Well, you want to be a better free throw shooter? Go make 100 free throws every day. Make 100 in a row, right? You might have to shoot 1,000 when you first get started, right? But eventually you're going to shoot 120 instead of 1,000, right? Because why? The repetition and especially if you have a coach or somebody helping you, right? If you stand there and shoot exactly the same way every time, you're going to shoot 1,000 every time. But if you have somebody who's coaching you and helping you, who says, okay, tuck your elbow in, hold your hand, this should be at a 90-degree angle. Make sure you get a little more spin on the ball. Breathe, whatever the things are, right? The coach who's standing there helping you is helping you practice, but they're helping you practice better because you can't always see the mistakes that you're making. You can't always, yourself. It's that deal of you either see the forest or you see the trees, but most of the time you can't see both, right? So having somebody help you, having a coach is always important, especially in athletics. And I think it's just as important as a business owner. But I heard this quote a few weeks ago, and I thought it was really, really, really good. And I hadn't thought about it this way, but whoever it was, and I can't remember now who it was, said, you don't get better by playing the game. You get better by practicing. And I was like, wow, right? It was that eureka moment. Wow. It's so true, right? I mean, look at an elite athlete. Look at anyone in business who's really good at their craft, right? They haven't gotten good by speaking thousands of times. They've gotten good by practicing that one presentation thousands of times. And I think sometimes that goes really, really unnoticed in business, and certainly in things like, speaking. I have a professional business speaking colleague, that a couple actually, but one that sticks out, two that stick out in my mind. One, Lee Phillips, who I've known for years and years and years, and I saw him do the exact same presentation probably 100 times, maybe more than that. But every single time he walked into the room to give his presentation, it was always the same thing. He always had it out. It was in a written format, and he was reading through it. He could tell you that his presentation was going to take, my number is going to be wrong, but you'll get the idea. His presentation was going to take somewhere between 90 minutes and 92 minutes and 10 seconds. Pretty amazing, right? But every time he entered a room, and again, he'd done the same presentation hundreds of times. Every time he walked into the room, he always had the written thing. He was always reading through it. He was always sitting in the back of the room, going through his presentation. Again, he'd done this thing. I'd seen him make it at least 100 times. Why was he doing that? Practice. He was continuing to practice his craft. I can tell you that when I got my very best direct mail presentation, the one that converted the best that I had ever done, I took that presentation and I had it transcribed. Had it transcribed. I listened to the presentation in my ears at least 10 times before I gave it. I would, for at least a week, every night as I was laying in bed, I would put the earphones in and listen to it. I would listen to it on the airplane on the way to the event. But here's the other piece, right? The piece of before I got to that point is my dogs have probably heard that presentation 100 times easily, because I gave it that many times. I actually stood in my house, stood in my office, and went through the whole presentation. Why? Again, because excuse me, it's the piece of repetition. It's the piece of practice. It's the piece of when you say something out loud that you're going to be speaking out loud anyway, you can say, oh no, that wasn't quite right, or whatever. It's not about memorizing it, right? It was never about memorizing my presentation, but it was having the presentation down so that if something unexpected happened in the room, right? There was a crazy moment, or, you had a heckler or whatever it was, you knew exactly where you were and you could pick that back up. That comes with practice. How do you get good at copywriting? How do you get good at writing headlines? It's not by writing one headline that you're going to use for a particular promotion. It's by writing 100 headlines for that promotion and picking the best few and then narrowing it down and testing those top 3, right? It's not about writing one headline. It's not about writing one sales letter. Most people won't do the hard part of practice. I can remember the late Gary Halbert talking about handwrite a sales letter 10 times. You want to learn to be a good copywriter? Handwrite a sales letter. Either one of them 10 times or find 10 that are really good and handwrite them. Now, we all are on computers or phones right now, but handwriting it's that kinesthetic movement of writing the thing that really ingrains that writing technique, that the way that you write, not the way that you write, but the words that you're writing into your brain. But most people won't take the time to do that, right? Maybe you'll practice in different ways, but that handwriting piece of writing a classic sales letter out by hand is a long and tedious process, but it's practice. And that's what practice is. It's tedious over and over and over and over, doing the same thing, right? Over and over again. I recently gave a very short presentation. It was about 1.5 minutes long. And I can tell you that I said that presentation no less than 300 times in the month prior to giving it, because I wanted it to be right, because it was important, because I wanted to practice. I wanted it to sound, a certain way. I wanted it to, the fact that if I was going to be nervous or something happened in the middle of it, to be able to have this flow. And I'm not exaggerating. I spend time in my car, going back and forth to the gym or going to the grocery store or whatever, talking. Yeah, I might look like a crazy person, right? But talking things through and doing sales presentations, or, a call to action, or, offers kind of things. Because that's for me, the verbal piece is important. I also handwrite things a lot, but it's practice. I'm practicing. I'm constantly practicing. I can remember, when I had jobs, when I was interviewing, um, thank God I don't have to, I'm not doing that anymore, right? But I can remember being in the car driving places and thinking about possible questions and answering them out loud so I could hear myself, so that became ingrained, right? So that if something didn't sound right or whatever, I could correct it in the practice session in the car, right? As opposed to saying something that I didn't want to say in an interview and not having a second opportunity to make that right. So you want to be good at something, you want to be great at something. You want to be looked at as an expert. We talk a lot about, having expert status in the world today. Practice. Just so happens that as I'm recording this, the NBA Finals are happening, and I'm watching the Suns and the Bucks. And the first game was last night, and I'm watching these guys, shoot these long 3-point baskets, and I'm watching them dribble up and down the court, and I'm watching them do all these things. And whether you like basketball or you like sports or not, there's this respect that comes for the skill level that these guys have developed by hours and hours and hours of practice, probably way more than 10,000 hours, right? And so what are you willing to do? And you know what? Here's the thing. As long as you know what you're willing to do, if you're willing to put the time in or you're not, there's no judgment on my part, or hopefully on anybody's part, or even on your part. But just know yourself. What are you willing to do and what are you willing not to do? What are you not willing to do, right? To get where you want to go. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? And if you're willing to do whatever it takes, it's going to take practice. I know, gee, Diane, you're always the bearer of bad news. No, it's not that I'm the bearer of bad news. I'm just the bearer, let's just keep it real, right? Diane's going to keep it real. And that's the real deal. If you want to get good at something, if you want things to sound natural, if you want people to say, wow, she really knows her stuff. Wow, how did he become such an expert in, I just interviewed yesterday in my coaching program, Rory Stern, who's a Facebook ads expert. Wow, how did he know so much about direct response marketing, and how does he apply that to Facebook ads? Because he's been doing it for so long. He's practiced. He's done it, right? That's how he looks, the things that were coming out of his mouth. And it was just natural. It's second nature because he practiced. And so the question is, are you willing to do the work? Don't just talk about. If you say you want to get better at something and you say you want to be good at something, are you willing to do what it takes to really get better at it, to do the work, to get to the skill level that you want to get to? And again, it's okay to say, you know what, I'd like to be better at that, but I'm not willing to spend 10,000 hours, or I'm not willing to write 100 headlines, or whatever. It's okay. But pick something that you want to be really good at and go be good at it. Go read books, go to seminars, go hire a coach, right? Whatever it takes to get really good at something. Because being good at something and being a natural, again, in air quotes, right? It doesn't happen overnight. That's what we think. I tell people all the time, stop comparing your behind the scene footage to everyone else's highlight reel. First of all, stop comparing, period, right? But stop looking at your worst day and somebody else's best day and saying, see, I'm no good, right? That's what we do. No. Those people have spent hours, years behind the scenes doing things that you haven't seen, and to you, they're an overnight success. There is no such thing as an overnight success. There isn't. Everyone that you see that's a success, that has a skill level that you admire or that you think, wow, that's amazing, has put in the time. Put in the time. What are you willing to do? What are you willing not to do? If you're looking for somebody to help you build your business, coach you along the way, reach out to me. Leave a message in the comments. Send me a private message, and let's have a conversation about how I might be able to help you practice a little bit more and become an expert, and to build your business the way you want it to go. So practice. Do some practice. Let me know how you do. I'm Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems. Until next time, have a great day.